All right, let's talk infrastructure as code. You know, the IAC space is, well, it's crowded. It's packed with all these amazing, powerful tools. But that's the problem, right? How do you pick the right one for your team? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to cut through all that noise and give you a quick, clear guide to the absolute top players in the game today. Let's dive in.
Man, this quote just hits different, doesn't it? Because we've all been there. Those late nights, the headache of trying to figure out why an environment is misbehaving, and oh my gosh, the classic, well, it works on my machine line. That's the chaos that IAC was born to solve. It's all about bringing some sanity, some order, and repeatability to the whole process.
So what are we really talking about when we say infrastructure as code? At its core, it's super simple. You're treating your infrastructure, your servers, your databases, your networks, all of it, just like you treat your application code. You write it down in files, you version it with something like Git, and you automate the heck out of it. The whole point is to get rid of human error and make sure everything is consistent. But, and this is a big but, how you write that code, that's where things get really interesting. And that brings us to our first big category of tools.
First up, we've got the Kubernetes native approach. Now, this one is all about a really powerful question. What if you could manage everything from inside Kubernetes? If your team lives and breathes Kubernetes, then you're going to want to pay close attention to this idea of a universal control plane.
And that leads us straight to Crossplane. The idea here is, honestly, kind of brilliant. It's like, hey, we've got this amazing, powerful Kubernetes API. Why don't we just use it to manage, well, everything else? Crossplane basically supercharges Kubernetes. It turns it into this universal control plane, so you can provision and manage your cloud resources. We're talking AWS, Azure, GCP, you name it, directly from the kubectl commands you're already using.
Okay, so let's look at the stats. The story here is crystal clear, right? The main features are native Kubernetes integration and multi-cloud support. That tells you exactly who this is for. Big organizations that have gone all in on Kubernetes as their standard operating model. And just look at who's using it. Autodesk, SAP, Fidelity, Adidas. These are not small shops. This is proof the Crossplane is built to handle serious, complex, enterprise-grade environments.
All right, let's switch gears. What if the whole idea of a central ops team managing infrastructure just isn't your vibe? What if you want to empower developers to own their infrastructure directly? Well, that brings us to a totally different category, the developer-centric tools. These are the ones that let you use the programming languages you already love. And this is the core promise of Pulumi. The idea is, forget learning a whole new, weird configuration language. What if your team could just use Python or Go or TypeScript to define and build their infrastructure? It totally blurs that old line between application code and infrastructure code. Suddenly, developers can own the entire stack using the tools they already live in, their favorite IDEs, their testing frameworks, the whole shebang.
What's so striking about Pulumi is this mix of developer love and serious enterprise credibility. I mean, look at that, over 22,000 GitHub stars. That's a ton of interest from developers. And then you see the user list, Microsoft, Snowflake, Mercedes-Benz, Coca-Cola. This proves that the developer-first approach isn't just some niche experiment. It's a powerful strategy that some of the biggest companies in the world are banking on.
Okay, but let's be real. What if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, using a real programming language sounds amazing, but we've already got a massive investment in Terraform? Well, you're not alone. And that's exactly where CDKTF, the cloud development kit for Terraform, enters the picture. It's designed to give you the best of both worlds.
You gotta understand, CDKTF plays a very specific role. It's not trying to replace Terraform at all. Instead, think of it as a nice developer-friendly layer you put right on top. So you get to write your code in something like TypeScript or Python, and CDKTF's job is to translate that into the standard Terraform configuration files. It's the perfect solution for companies like Netflix and Atlassian who want to keep using Terraform's powerful backend, but give their developers a much nicer way to work.
So let's make this super clear because this is the most important distinction. Pulumi is its own complete standalone platform. It has its own engine, its own state management, the whole deal. CDKTF is different. It's a friendly wrapper, an abstraction layer that still uses Terraform under the hood to do all the heavy lifting. The choice really boils down to this. Are you starting from scratch, or are you trying to improve an existing Terraform setup?
So far, we've mostly talked about provisioning, the act of just creating the infrastructure in the first place. But what happens after that? What about configuring the software, deploying the apps, and managing everything day to day? Well, our next tool is an absolute powerhouse in that space. It's a true giant of IT automation.
Of course, we're talking about Ansible. Ansible's big claim to fame is its incredible combination of simplicity and raw power. The killer feature? It's agentless. That means you don't have to go and install special software on every single machine you want to manage, which is huge. Plus, it uses these simple, human-readable YAML files called playbooks. This makes it super approachable for pretty much everyone, whether you're a seasoned sysadmin or a developer just getting started.
And wow, the numbers here really do speak for themselves. 64,000 GitHub stars. That is a massive, incredibly active community. And the reason for that is simple. Its use case is just so broad. You see it everywhere, in hybrid cloud setups, in DevOps pipelines, in all sorts of IT automation. That's why you see it being trusted for absolutely mission-critical work at places like Tesla, LinkedIn, and Verizon.
Okay, our laugh tool today is a little different. It's more than just a piece of tech. It's actually a story. This is a project that was born out of a pretty controversial moment in the IAC world, and its entire existence is powered by a super passionate open source community.
And that project is OpenTofu. So here's what happened. When HashiCorp switched Terraform's license over to the business source license, which puts some new restrictions on it, a huge chunk of the community basically said nope. They decided to create a fork of the project to make sure a version of it would stay truly open source forever. And that fork is OpenTofu. It's a fully compatible, drop-in replacement for Terraform, and it's now under the stewardship of the Linux Foundation.
The momentum behind this has been absolutely incredible. Think about it. It's already racked up over 24,000 GitHub stars in a really short amount of time. And the key thing to understand about OpenTofu is that it's not really about having brand new, shiny features. It's about a deep philosophical commitment to open source. So for any team or company where that community governance and a truly open license are absolute deal breakers, OpenTofu is now the obvious choice.
Phew, okay. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We've seen the Kubernetes native approach, the dev-centric tools, the big automation powerhouse, and the community-driven fork. They're all great options. So, how in the world do you actually choose the right one for your team?
Well, one way to look at it is community momentum, and GitHub stars are a pretty good proxy for that. And why does this matter? Well, a bigger community usually means more integrations, better documentation, and a better chance of finding help on Stack Overflow at 2 a.m. when you're stuck. As you can see, Ansible is the undisputed heavyweight champion here. But what's really impressive is just how strong the numbers are for the much newer players like OpenTofu and Pulumi. It shows you their ecosystems are super vibrant.
And of course, we can't wrap this up without giving a nod to the other big players in the room. Look, Terraform is still a massive force in multi-cloud, even with the license change. And don't forget the proprietary tools. If your company is 100% committed to a single cloud, say just AWS, then a native tool like CloudFormation is going to be really tough to beat because of that deep, seamless integration.
When you really get down to it, picking a tool isn't just a technical decision. It's a reflection of your team's culture, your philosophy. We've seen how tools like Pulumi push power out to the developers, letting them own everything, and then you have tools like Crossplane that centralize control within that Kubernetes ecosystem. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. As infrastructure becomes just another form of code, where does your team draw the line between a developer's job and an operator's job? Think about that, because the answer to that question, that's what will lead you to the perfect tool.